Last night, the Ballon d'Or was finally announced, and Ousmane Dembele took home the trophy. He is the Ballon d'Or winner and the number one player in world football for 2024-2025. And you gotta feel so happy for him. Where he was during his last few seasons at Barca, he had 49 GA in his last four seasons over the course of 120 games, constantly getting injured. Barca fans essentially kicked him off the team. They didn't like him anymore, and they didn't want him to be part of the franchise anymore. And then he goes to PSG just after PSG lost their best player ever in my mind, and the best player in the world currently also in my mind, in Kylian Mbappe. He goes away, goes to Real Madrid. We always suspected that was going to happen at some point, and they bring in Ousmane Dembele kind of as a replacement, but not quite. This is after PSG's superstar project failed, where they brought in Neymar and Messi and Sergio Ramos and a bunch of just superstar players to bring in and say this is going to be the team for the future with just a bunch of big name guys, and that didn't work out. And they got rid of all the stars, and Ousmane Dembele was just supposed to be part of the team that picks up the pieces. But PSG always seemed like a team that winning France is a given. It's going to happen regardless. If you win France, it's not really that impressive for a PSG-led team because it's supposed to happen. Can you get far in the Champions League? Can you potentially win the Champions League? That's the main one, because anything domestic, you should be able to win. But it's all about the Champions League, because that's the measuring stick that we put you on. And PSG pulled through and they won the Champions League last year. This is after getting rid of their best player, and they got better. And Real Madrid potentially added the best player in the world, and technically they got worse last year. Football is a funny sport. It's not like basketball, where in basketball, the Warriors go 73-9, and then they get Kevin Durant, and then they become literally unbeatable. Football's not the same way. Real Madrid can be Champions League and league winners, add the best player in the world, and actually get worse. Part of that's because of injuries. Part of that is because I think Carlo Ancelotti, his time had passed as the Real Madrid manager, and it just doesn't seem like his tactics were working with this team any longer. Part of it was just squad depth and, defenders and everything like that. But a lot of it has to do with the fact that just because you add another great player doesn't necessarily make your team collectively better. We talk about this all the time with the England's golden generation back in the day, where they had Gerrard and Lampard, two of the greatest midfielders ever, and they're certainly probably the two greatest midfielders of that time, you could argue, along with some of the Spanish guys. And they played both of them at the same time. But in hindsight, they should have just played one at the same time and actually had a true six, actually had a true defensive midfielder to anchor the defensive line, because they were allowing too many goals, which was a lot of the reason why that generation of English football didn't win any trophies. You had two great players, but you probably should have only played one at once. Playing both at the same time may have hurt the balance of the team. But Ousmane Dembele was perfect with the balance of the team that PSG had, along with Vitinha. Nuno Mendes is the best left back in football. Gianluigi Donnarumma, who's obviously at Man City now, is arguably the best goalkeeper. He just won the Yashin Trophy as well. They just had such a good deep squad. I forgot about Hakimi and Kvaratskhelia, and such a talented roster with Luis Enrique leading the way. They had such a great team, but really the headliner was Ousmane Dembele. He was by far their best player, and he was able to make it all work. They were no longer a he, they were now a we. And that's some of the good things that can happen when a team gets rid of their best player. They can actually become better as a result, and that's what happened with PSG, and Ousmane Dembele was the headliner for it, and I'm so happy for him. You saw that he was crying at the end, and it was great to see. But the interesting thing about this Ballon d'Or ranking was actually the ranking in and of itself. After Ousmane Dembele, number 2 was Lamine Yamal. I have no problem with that. I've made an argument that maybe, just maybe, Lamine Yamal is actually the best player in the world. Not going to be currently. Just the way he plays, and some of the way I saw him play for Spain at the Euros in 2024 and in La Liga over the past season, etc., he looked as good, if not better, than everybody that was on the field. It didn't result to the trophies, so because Barca didn't win the Champions League, I felt like Ousmane Dembele deserved to win the Ballon d'Or because PSG won the Champions League. But just from an individual perspective, he looks stellar. But I'm shocked that Rafinha came in 5th. It seemed like Barcelona fans as a whole decided to say that, no, it's Lamine Yamal who should win the Ballon d'Or, not Rafinha. So they elevated Yamal over Rafinha. And it's weird because you make the argument that just maybe if they had said, no, it's Rafinha, Yamal's time would come, Rafinha would probably be second. Maybe media narratives have a huge thing to say in who should win the Ballon d'Or. We remember in 2018, Ronaldo should have won the Ballon d'Or, but they gave it to Luka Modric. Why? Voter fatigue, because each of the last 10 Ballon d'Ors before that had gone to Messi or Ronaldo. Ronaldo had just won the last two in a row. And I get Luka Modric played great for his country, but let's not forget, Ronaldo scored over 40 goals in that season, won the Champions League again. And even though he didn't have the stellar World Cup performance that Luka Modric did, he did score a hat trick in the first game of the World Cup and really was Portugal's only saving grace. Without him, they don't even make it out of the group stage, which they did in the World Cup that year. And Luka Modric ends up winning it to get some diversity and make the awarding of the Ballon d'Or a little bit different. But regardless, I have many issues with the Ballon d'Or as a whole. Rodri didn't deserve to win it last year. Haaland should have won it over Messi in 2023. Benzema should have won it in 2022. Lewandowski, in my opinion, should have two Ballon d'Ors. Not one, two. In 2020 and 2021. They didn't award it in 2020 because of COVID or whatever, even though many football leagues did end their season. And in 2021, I would have picked him over Messi again. So I think Lewandowski should have two, and instead he has none. So he's been completely robbed over. So I think the Ballon d'Or post Ronaldo not winning it in 2018 has been kind of a joke. Vinny didn't win it last year. I would have picked Vinny over or Bellingham over Rodri winning the Ballon d'Or last year, even though Rodri is sensational and he's the best DM in the world when he's healthy, but obviously he's been out for a year with an ACL, just coming back now. But yeah, the Ballon d'Or, Ousmane Dembele goes out and he wins it, and he was stellar this year. I'm very excited for him, and I'm happy for PSG. I think Mbappe will just be fine on his own in retrospect if we're judging by that total, because, hey, he's scoring basically every goal for Real Madrid, and I think this Real Madrid team looks way better than the team last year. So I don't think that transfer was like a mistake or whatever. That's just some kind of the way that football works sometimes. But yeah, the rankings were interesting. Mo Salah was fourth. Coutinho was ahead of him, which I get, but Mo Salah should be the highest ranked Premier League player given Liverpool's dominance in the Premier League last year. Mbappe was still seventh. Cole Palmer eighth. Pedri was 11th. So a lot of Barcelona players, and of course a lot of PSG players, and some of the best players in England. So it kind of follows a trend. Gyökeres was 15, and stuff like that. So an interesting ranking, but Ousmane Dembele is the winner, as he deserves to be, and I'm happy for him. And enjoy that Ballon d'Or, man, because you were sensational this year.